Hello, this is What's All About with another watch review, and in this review we're looking at the Sea-Gull Ocean Star, which is their very latest release, and I'm very excited to say that this is one of the very first reviews going out there. Right now it will cost you $350, which equates to around £260. And as you can see, it's very much a diver's watch. It's very impressive to look at, and the quality of it is quite something as well. So let's have a look at it in closer detail then to see if it's worth your money. So thinking about the specs then, we have a diameter of 44 mil, which is pretty standard nowadays for a decent sized diver watch. We have a height of 13 mil, which isn't too bad really, considering the diameter of it. And we have a lug to lug length of 50 mil. Now on my 7¼ inch wrist, I think I pull it off fairly well. I think you're going to struggle if you have anything smaller, though 7 inches and smaller. So the weight of it is pretty hefty. It's 178 grams. So when you put it on, you really do notice it. It feels really top quality, and you can tell that it's a really well made timepiece. Lug width is 22 mil, and it reduces down to 20 mil at the buckle. Obviously we have a sapphire crystal. Notice we have a little date magnifier cyclops as well. Some may love it, some may hate it. I personally don't mind them at all. You have a 1-year warranty with this as well. The resistance is 200 meters, which is pretty good, so you're good to go. Pretty good scuba diving in that. And the movement is, of course, as you'd expect, a Sea-Gull. So it's the ST2130 movement, and that's more or less a ETA 2824-2 clone. But we'll talk about that more in a little bit. So let's talk about it one element at a time. So thinking about the dial first, if I just take it off. You'll have to excuse me being a bit slower than usual. I'm just recovering from a wrist operation, so my hand isn't working quite as well as I would have hoped. So here we have the dial. If I get it nice and close, and obviously it's a blue colour. It might be a bit difficult seeing it in its true hue from this video, but if you look at the pictures on the written review, you'll get a decent idea of the colour. It's a fairly dark blue, and the colour of the bezel and the dial matches together quite well, and everything on the dial itself is really well made and applied. So we have the applied hour markers, which are all batons, except for at 12 where we have a double baton, which is very smart and sophisticated look. I really like the design of the hands as well. Again, these are polished, just like the hour markers, but it's like a sword but with an exaggerated tip, very curvy tip, which is very nicely done. And then the second hand, again, nice exaggerated point, and then a very thin diamond counterweight as well. It's nice to see a little border around the date window as well, again in polished stainless steel, so everything reflects the light really well. And I tell you, one thing that has really impressed me is the quality of that little star, because obviously it's called an ocean star, this model, so they've put a little applied star there, which is really well made and really well finished considering the size of it. I personally would have loved to have seen a applied logo, like just the little seagull icon. I think that would have been amazing if that was applied as well. Would have taken it up to the next level, but unfortunately that is not the case. But all of the printing on the dial is really well done, and it looks looks really well put together and well manufactured. Moving on to the case then. As I mentioned before, it's a fairly hefty size, 44 mil by 13 by 20 by 50. Sorry. All of the finishing is, as you'd expect, very good quality as well. I mean, we're talking about, this is, I'm likening this very much to a Christopher Ward Trident, which of course is double its price at least, but it can really stand up to it really well. all the finishing and the machining on the case is excellent. So we have a brushed side and brushed top, apart from these polished corners of the lugs, and then just the top of the crown guards are polished as well. And then on the underside, we have the majority of the actually all of the underside is polished as well. If we look at the crown, we have the Sea-Gull logo embossed on the end, so that's tightened up, but unfortunately it doesn't quite line up. That's a real bugbear of mine, but I understand that it can be hard to do when you're on a budget. Shape wise, it's a nice shape to fit your wrist well. The lugs are quite downturned, so they hug your wrist well. And then on the case back we have an ocean star motif with, funnily enough, the ocean and a star. I don't like that font though. I think it's a bit Comic Sans and a bit cheap looking, so that's that's quite a bummer really. I'm a bit upset with that. We have this nice mottled ring around that, and then surrounding this polished, we have a polished ring with details reasonably deeply engraved on it, but they probably could do with being a little bit deeper. Moving on to the bracelet, a brushed center link with polished side links and polished at the side as well. Everything's completely brushed on the underside, so it's nice and comfortable when you're wearing it. Obviously we have solid end links as well, which fit the case really well. Barely see any gap there at all. We see a slight gap on this side, but not enough to notice really. Same for the top. And just like the case, it's really well machined, really well finished as well. It's very soft and silky to wear, quite buttery when when you're using it as well. So nicely oiled. We have the double locking clasp as well. So one lock is just like that. Release it with the two buttons with a button either side, and then we have the top flap over the top as well. And we have the Sea-Gull logo on the top there, but that's quite lightly etched in. I would have liked to have seen that deeper engraved really. It also has micro adjustment, so you can get it fitting just right. So I've managed to get a really comfortable fit. They're just standard pins, they're not screws, which would have been nice to see, but we can't ask for everything, can we? So just touching on the movement, obviously we can't see it, but the Sea-Gull ST2130, because it's a clone of the ETA 2824, it has all the same specs as well. So it's a high beat movement, so it runs at 28.8 thousand beats per hour, same as all the Swiss, all the decent Swiss made autos. That means it goes 8 ticks per second, but it also has 40 to 42 hour power reserve, which is the norm, and it houses 26 joules. Obviously it has a date function, hand winding, hacking seconds hand, and automatic winding as well. So if you look at my written review, you'll see a link to a really good teardown of this movement, and the guy there, he really knows his stuff, and he says it's a step above the usual Chinese movements that you see in many watches today. So it's good to know that the movement in this watch is really highly regarded, and it also looks quite nice as well, straight out of the factory. So although we can't see it, if you were to look at it, it would have some nice pearlage on the bridges and on the rotor as well. Okay, so let's have a look at it in a bit closer with the macro lens on. Just give it a quick wipe. So here's the dial first of all. So you can see the printing there. It's all nice and fine. On the printing down here as well again. And unfortunately we see that horrible font again. You can see like a matte finish to the dial as well. The blue. And there's this lovely little star, which is really nicely made. There it is. And then look at these hands as well. pitched, but really well made and nice design as well. It's the hour hand, and the second hand is flat, has a red tip to it. Looking at the applied hour markers, again, I'm going to say they're really nicely machined. The loom, I didn't mention the loom, but that's surprisingly strong as well. So that glows pretty brightly, quite brightly. And we can see under there the border to the date window, and you can see here the stuck on Cyclops, and there it is doing its job, magnifying the date. Does a good job of it. And printing around the outside as well. And we've added China made at the bottom as well rather than Swiss made, so they're obviously they have no qualms about where they've come from, so kudos to them. Moving on to the bezel and the case. Here's the loom pip at 12, again nicely applied, just simple printed markings on the insert. Here's the grip that's polished. Moving the bezel, give it a little go. Got a nice action to it. Sounds really good as well. Lines up nicely. A tiny amount of wiggle in it, but nothing out of the ordinary really. Moving on to the rest of the case then. Here's the crown. That's polished. Good grip on it. There's the embossed logo on the end. The crown guards, which are quite angular. And we have the finishing down the side there. Very uniform. Polished corner, brush top as well. And then if we flip around to the case back, there's the ocean star motif, the mottled ring, and surrounding that we've got some details as well, reasonably engraved. So moving on to the bracelet, if I just give it a quick wipe. Here's the brushed centre link, finished nicely to match the case. Polished end links, could have done with a little bit more of a wipe. There you go. Here's the solid end link, and you'll notice how close it is to the case. Well fitted. And then the underside, that's all brushed. There we go, so very comfortable when it's on. And then if we just have a look at the buckle as well, that's a little nipple, and there's the underside there, clips on. So that's one of the buttons on the side there. Then you flap the lid over, and then we have Sea-Gull quite lightly engraved on the top. So there we go. So, $350 or £260. I'm going to say it, and I really like this watch. It's without doubt equivalent to Swiss-made watches, double the price, easily. It's easily equivalent to maybe the Steinhardt Ocean 1 and the Christopher Ward Trident range. You know, it's even sort of similarly designed as well. You can see where the kind of market they're going for. But the quality of the build quality, even the looks, I really like the design of it as well. I think it's ever so slightly different to what's out there in form of the hands and the little star on it, and the border around the date window. All these little tiny differences, really well really well put together, cleverly designed, really well made as well. For £260, I'm struggling to think of a better alternative, really. It's that good. So I've certainly found a new favourite watch of mine. Obviously, if you were to just spend £100 more, you would get a Steinhardt Ocean one, which is Swiss made and of a similar quality, but it is £100 more. So for this price, I'm really coming up with a blank as to any decent alternatives that are better. So highly recommended. So this was the Sea-Gull Ocean Star, and that's what it's all about.